Okay, B'ezrat Hashem, we're starting Pirkei Avot here, Pirkei Mishnah Chaf Aleph. And we're going to learn a Mishnah today, which is a famous Mishnah, but it also appears to be a Mishnah that we're not makbid on today, which is very interesting. This Mishnah goes through the different ages that a person needs to be fitting for different stages in life, or different steps in life. Meaning that there's a particular time, just as we start off, when a person should start learning Chumash, when a person should start learning Mishnah, when a person has certain kochot. We go through this Mishnah when a person gets married. But what's interesting is that today, it doesn't seem at least that we are so makpid on these numbers. As we go through, we're going to try to understand with Rashi, we'll go through with Rashi today, to try to understand what each of these stages are, and perhaps at the end we'll discuss maybe the idea that we're not so careful today. It doesn't seem like we're so careful about these today, which is a chidush to say such a thing. So let's see. Mishnah says as follows. Hu haya omer. How old is you have a 5-year-old son? 5 years old? 4.5. 4.5. She's teaching him? Amen. Hu haya omer. So Yehuda ben Tema said the following. Ben chamesh lemikra. 5-year-old boy, kids, should start learning Chumash. Actually, the Gemara, I believe it's Baba Batra, says it's not 5 years old, it's after his 5th year. It means in the beginning of his 6th year. But after 5 years, he should start learning Chumash. Now, why? Because the Mefarshim speak out, Torah is mateshet kocho shel adam. Torah, when you learn Torah, it weakens a person. It takes away their strength. Okay. So, if you start learning Torah when you're too little, it could be chas v'shalom damaging. So you have to wait till the kid grows up a little bit, to a certain age. Again, we already teach Torah tziva lanu Moshe morasha kilat Yaakov of little age. But really Torah, learning Torah is only when a kid has enough energy to be able to learn Torah and not for it to affect him negatively. Very interesting. It strengthens you, but in a physical sense, it seems to be that it also could have a negative effect. Hu haya omer, so ben chamesh shanim lemikra. 5 years old, start learning Chumash. Now, pretty much we do that. I mean, in the schools, we kind of do 5 years old, we start learning Chumash. To a degree. I mean, it's not exactly, but close enough, we could say. Close enough. It's close enough today. Ben eser lemishnah. Now, 10 years old should start learning Mishnayot. So I saw that the Mefarshim speak out over here something very interesting. We find by the Leviim that it says there's a contradiction in Psukim. The Gemara notes this. On one hand, it says the Leviim would start working in Avodat Hashem when they're 25. On the other hand, it says that when they were 30. So were they 25 or were they 30? So the Gemara explains, Chazal explained to us, when they were 25, they would study how to work with the Kelim, with all of the parts of the Mishkan. And when they were 30, they would start the real labor. And the Gemara deduces that from here we see if somebody studies for 5 years and he doesn't see success, he's going to have a very hard time moving forward, to say the least. Which is why the Mefarshim say there's these 5-year increments. Meaning is that first you should study Chumash for 5 years, 5 to 10 years old. That's the block of time that you could master Chumash. Then you start learning Mishnayot at 10 years old. Now again, do we start learning Mishnayot at 10 years old practically today? Close enough, I guess we could say. It's not exactly. Some kids will start at 7 years old. Some kids will start 11 years old. We're not exactly makpid on this today. There are yeshivot, I think it's called Zilberstein in Eretz Yisrael, where they are makpid in order to fulfill this Mishnah, to learn exactly like this. But most of the world, we're not makpid exactly in this way. So again, 5 years old Chumash, 10 years old learn Mishnayot. Ben 13 lemitzvot. Now when you're 13 years old, you become chayav in mitzvot, bar mitzvah. Right? What is the source in the Torah that 13 years old is considered an ish, is considered a man? Does anybody know? What's the source in the Torah that a 13-year-old is a man and therefore is chayav in mitzvot? Does anybody know? 13 years old is a man. Where do we find that in the Torah? Does anybody know the source? Huh? Ishmael, okay, that's interesting. it calls Shimon and Levi Ish. When they go and they take their swords and they go to kill out the city of Shechem ben Chamo. And based on tradition, we know they were 13 years old. Shimon and Levi, when they went to kill out Shechem ben Chamor, that situation where they had taken Dinah and raped her, the whole story, they're called Ish, and based on tradition, they were 13 years old. What's that? I guess one of them was, it's a good point. I guess the younger one was 13 years old at least, so you say 9 months apart. That's true, good point. Oh. So that's the source actually. So the point is, 13 years old, the person is chayav in mitzvot. Continues the Mishnah. When we're 15 years old, we start learning the Gemara. Now what is the difference in Mishnah and Gemara? Mishnah is the Torah Sheba'al Peh without the reasonings. It's just the straight halachot. Mishnah is very similar to halacha. You learn the halacha straight. The Gemara is the questions and the answers and the logic and the omek of the halacha, the depth and the sophistication. That we start learning when we're 15, says the Mishnah. Now this, almost across the board, we don't fulfill today. Because practically speaking, in yeshivot today, across the board, we start learning Gemara when we're 11 years old in yeshivot. That's what they start doing.
Man, I was so lost.
But you were so lost, right? It's true. Some people are so lost. Maybe that's why the Mishnah says 15.
It was really tough to do.
It was really tough. But
didn't connect at all.
Right, I'm just saying practically what is done.
And they also use such a turnover of teachers. Every year is a different teacher. You connect, you don't connect. They pay attention, you don't pay attention. Kids, too many, it's a big balagan. It's not a big mess. You got to change the system.
So
whoever seems might have it right.
Maybe there's
I don't understand who's running these schools, but whoever it is, they have no comprehension of what's going on. Maybe they weren't kids.
The Gemara is like...
So I would say there are probably children like you experienced, and those kids definitely need some sort of an alternative track.
Where do you think all the kids lost their derech?
Right, so there definitely are, unfortunately, but to blame...
about a minority, you're talking about a
right.
substantial...
I agree with you, but to blame an entire system and say it's... Well, to say the entire... You could, and I'm not going to take that away from you, I'm saying, but to say that the entire Klal Yisrael is doing entirely wrong is...
The fact that they're not learning Sefer Chinuch is
listen.
But I think also when a child has a hard time with school learning, it's not an excuse to lose the derech. If the teacher have a love and patience to the child, even if the child doesn't understand,
that's nice for a father to say it's not an excuse for a child to lose a derech, but the kids themselves don't see it the same way that you're seeing it.
Why?
You're saying it's not an excuse for them. Are you there with them? No. Are you? No. You're here. You're there. You're here.
No, I mean,
okay, and how many of them are together? I'm saying how many of them are, few kids who are in and few kids who are not in, right?
Well, I have two kids from different marriages.
Okay, but I'm saying so.
All right, Kevin, let's.
No, I'm saying, but usually when
if you want to learn Torah now, all the stories is like...
you just can't relax.
The child
want to learn Torah.
Joseph.
And care from the teacher. If you don't understand, he's still gonna keep usually the path. But if they feel like the teacher look at them down as somebody have no brain, of course they're gonna go off the derech.
Listen, I've worked with kids for a bunch of years.
You're right,
less or more, it doesn't matter.
I just want to support what Yocha is saying. Is I've worked with kids for many years. I work in the school here. I've worked with kids for many years, and I can tell you, there's some kids that are stronger, some kids that are weaker. That's without question. Hashem gives different abilities to every kid. That's not a reason to push away a kid. But you're right. I agree with you. There should be alternative tracks or alternative options, so that kids can flourish at their own pace. I agree with you. There's no concept of a one-size-fits-all when it comes to education. That's impossible.
I think the rationale why they learn Baba Mitzvah, Baba Mechama, because you want to teach and instill a kid's damages. Teach them halacha of damages. You cause damage to somebody else, you're going to be responsible. Why do you need to go through a page of Gemara with Tosfot and Rashi and lose half the kids? Just teach them. You're going to cause damage to somebody else, you're going to be responsible. Yeah. You can say that in one sentence. You don't have to say that over an entire year and lose them.
I hear.
For this, I don't need the Gemara, the normal.
Exactly. But that's why they're doing it. They teach the kids. They want them. That's the whole rationale. Because you want to instill in kids that there's repercussions for the action that you take, right?
I said, we could talk about the system later.
Let's do it over a 2-year process. You can teach them in 1 second.
Let's go ahead. All right, Stefan, let's talk about back to the Mishnah. Ben 15 Gemara. So Kitzu is saying is 15 years old we start learning Gemara. I was just pointing out is that practically we start learning Gemara much earlier than 15 years old today. The yeshivot, the way it's set up, they start learning. I was in, I think, 5th grade when I started learning Gemara. Now, you have to know exactly why it is set up that way today and why the Mishnah says it as it is, but that is what it says. Ben 18 lechuppah. I'm also this, by the way. 18 years old is for getting married, right? How many people get married at 18 years old if you're not Hasidish today? You got married at 18?
18, 19.
Wow.
My wife. My wife.
Your wife? My grandmother was younger than 18.
That's why I got,
Again.
that's why I got the grandchildren.
What? My grandmother was 17, I think. Yeah, my grandmother. Yeah.
My grandmother 39.
Grandmother 70?
I think 17. Not 70. 17.
Fanatic
You know,
it was before.
you know, in Breslau, today is 16.
Really?
Yeah, but and because of the law, because I think there's a law in Israel, you can get married.
18.
Right.
No, 16.
I think today, I think
fine.
practically today, if people would get married so young in a general sense, it wouldn't be very good.
I don't know, you're leading kids to computers and to pornography.
Yeah.
So for 5, 10, 15 years, they'd be watching pornography instead of getting married. I don't understand why that's so much better.
Because they're not emotionally mature enough to sustain a marriage. That's why. Meaning it's going to blow up. Practically.
Rather than watch pornography, lose Shabbat, lose kashrut. Okay, chas v'shalom, that's the practical reality.
Right, it's not here.
Giving
Ben-
people phones, they have YouTube, they have this,
Right,
they have
right,
that.
right. I hear you. This I hear you.
בארץ
Yes,
בארץ לא משתמשים בטלפונים האלה. אני מדבר על הדתיים.
Okay.
יש
Listen, you know what?
טלפון חכם.
I think you should reform the system.
Smartphone.
Getting married at 18. I'm with
I
you.
would love that. I missed out my chance.
I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to get married at 18. I can tell you that much.
Twice as long.
I think it would have been a
I would love
disaster
to
to
get
get married at 18.
The Hasidim, they have telephone block all this.
Ben Esrim Lerdov. Now the Mishnah continues. 20 years old is Lerdov. What's Lerdov? To run, to chase. What are you chasing at 20? What are you chasing? Chasing girls. You know,
That's all right.
okay, so he got married at 19, but okay, we got a problem there. Now we understand the issue. Okay.
I think Parnasa.
What? Parnasa, very good. So some of the Mefarshim here say it means you have to start working hard, chasing, working hard. Other Mefarshim say Lerdov means to run after Torah and mitzvot. That's when you have youthful energy, good young energy, use it to run after Torah and mitzvot. That's what happens at 20. Now we're going to continue now in the Mishnah, which is a very interesting thing. We're going to show every block of years as we continue now, there is something unique that the Mishnah calls the koach of that year, of that group of years. Go through, try to explain as the Mefarshim speak out. Ben shloshim lekoach. When a person is 30 years old, he's considered as having koach. What is koach? Koach means physical strength.
Yeah.
Where do we find a concept like this? I mentioned this before. The Leviim, when they would start physically working in the Mishkan, was 30 years old because that's when they had their. The 30 years old is roughly around the peak physical strength to utilize in service, whether it's Avodat Hashem, Parnasa, whatever it is. Ben arba'im lebina. When a person is 40 years old, he has what's called bina. What's bina?
Smart.
So it's a type of intelligence which is called mivin davar mitoch davar. What does that mean? In English it's called extrapolation. What does that mean? It means extrapolation. Extrapolation. Bina. Extrapolation.
You tell me something and I think...
Exactly. Using the chokhmah that you already have to develop into something else, to appreciate something else, which is the ability to take one piece of wisdom and then turn it into something else, or appreciate something else. Where do we find that there's such an idea when it comes to 40? So at the end of the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Jewish people, now you're going to be responsible for all the punishments, etc. After 40 years, Hashem has commanded you and taught you and guarded you and took in the command, all those things. Now you're responsible. And the Gemara says from this we see that a person can only appreciate the Torah of his Rebbe after 40 years of studying under him. So there's some ability that you gain a chokhmah, a level of bina, at 40. Okay. Some say, I think that it comes from here, is this idea of learning Zohar, learning Kabbalah. There's different things. Psak, to be a posek, 40 years old, different things come from this. Ben chamishim le'etzah. When a person is 50 years old, he has the ability to give good advice. Where do we find this idea? The Leviim used to work from 30 to 50, like I explained. At 50, they would stop the physical labor and they would continue to command the other Leviim in the halachot and give them advice how to work. So there's an idea of Eitzah, 50-year-old person, life experience. He saw a lot of things that younger people haven't yet had. He can give good advice. Ben Shishim leZikna. 60 years old, a person comes to the age of Zikna. So the Mefarshim speak out, what is Zikna? Zikna is the hair starts to turn white. Now my problem with that is I'm 31 and my hair is already a little turning white. And he says that's what Zikna is. 60 years old, the Zikna, his hair starts to turn white.
What does that mean though?
What does it mean?
Because we got white is 16.
That's a good question.
Gotta be something more.
There has to be more to it, right? So let's see, what do they say here? I didn't find actually brought down what is the symbolism or the significance of that. But there's something unique about a 60-year-old.
Say once, when your beard starts to get white, that's when you get getting more mercy. It's become more Rahman.
Very nice. I mean, the whiteness is more of a Rachaman.
I'm dying to know what's for 70.
Zaken malei chokhmah. Right? Isn't that what it says by HaKadosh Baruch Hu by Har Sinai? It says, Zaken malei malei rachamim. Malei rachamim. I think, no, but it says by Har Sinai that HaKadosh Baruch Hu appeared. Does it say Zaken though? I don't remember. It says Hashem appeared at Har Sinai like an old person, full of mercy, but like an old person. Maybe that's the idea, mercy. Maybe there's more.
When you become old, you become much more mercy.
Right. What I found very interesting is that, like when you see parents who raise children younger and older, some families you have. I mean, your family also have, but in my family, we were the older group, and then I had children, brothers and sisters younger, born 15 years later.
Wow.
So you find sometimes that the way the parents deal with the older kids, much more strict. And the older young ones, he wants to stay up till 10 o'clock, he wants to eat candy, he wants to do whatever.
That's not the case with Yosef and Agid, no?
Not with Yosef and Agid? No, it is. Of course it is. Yosef takes care of Johnny. You know, that's the point. You're much more loose with them. Zikna. Ben Shifim leSeiva. 70 is Seiva. Now Seiva is even older. The Mefarshim speak out. It's where the hair is turned all white or mostly white. Where do we find this idea of Seiva? So there was a fellow.
You gotta teach us something.
Hold on. We find that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was appointed Nasi in the place of Rabbi Gamliel. Now what happened? His wife said to him, okay, great, that's a wonderful job. By the way, we learned in the story there, it's a Gemara in Brachot that says, he went to ask his wife, should I take the job? You don't just take the job without asking the wife. It's a very important thing. Okay, Kitsu. So he goes to his wife and she says, okay, this problem, that problem. Then she says, finally, they're not going to take you seriously. You're 18 years old. So he davened and he got white in his beard. He said, Harei ani kiven shiv'im shana. Like I'm 70 years old. He looked like he was 70 years old. Why? Because a person who's 70 years old, we stand up for people who are 70 years old. There's a certain kavod. People have a certain respect for that. So that's a 70-year-old. Seva. Ben shmonim legvura. Now this touches on a pasuk in Tehillim. Pasuk in Tehillim says, David HaMelech tells us, the average lifespan is 70. V'im b'gvurot shmonim shana. So when you reach 80, it's gvurot. Gvurot doesn't mean physical strength because 80-year-old obviously doesn't have physical strength of a 30-year-old. But gvurot means gvurato shel makom. Is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving you gvura to continue living, to continue having energy, because that's not necessarily an age that everybody is zochet to. V'im b'gvurot shmonim shana. Okay, now we're getting
about 90.
No.
Getting there. Hold on. We're not there. We're getting there. Hold on.
90.
No, but
We should all be zochet. What?
All this number, I don't think it's real in the life.
What do you mean? What do you mean not real?
אתה לא מתחתן בגיל 18. מתחתן מתי
That's
שאתה...
what I was saying. It is.
Okay,
Here. Ben Tish'im. Now there's two ways to read it. It's either lasuach or lashuach. There's two ways to read this. When a person is 90, it's either lashuach or lasuach. Now let's talk about the more negative interpretations first. So either the pshat lashuach is bent over. So when a person's 90, sometimes he gets bent over. Or lasuach is also lashon, could be a cave. That's when he gets buried. Right? So those are the little more morose interpretations. The other pshat they say is ben tish'im lasuach is sicha. A person who's 90 years old, his number is about to be called. He's going to go to Olam HaEmet soon, so he should be involved in sicha. What is sicha? Slicha of Torah. He should be involved all day in learning Torah because he's going to get his number punched. So 120 hopefully, but it's going to come soon. So we should take the opportunity to start learning a lot of Torah, not be involved in other things.
Okay. You know, a couple of years, when he get too close to 90, he said until now, from now on, this day, it's a bonus Hashem give me today. Right. So you really give a push.
Exactly.
And you see, you get Chazon Ovadia, you know, you get done so much.
Exactly.
You understand, they feel that
the time is coming, and that's it.
He said, they said no more because he cut off a lot of stuff. No bitul Torah,
right.
But a lot of extra, no more, die. Learning.
All right, so now we're at 90, Chevra, 90. Ben Me'ah, if somebody reaches 100, 100 is very special. Ki'ilu met, as if he already passed away, meaning physically, a person who's 100, usually they can't see so well, they can't hear so well, they can't walk so well. You find someone that could do all of those things at 100, it's like 1 in 100. And it's as if he's already removed from this world. Somebody that's 100, this is special. Hashem is giving them a special bracha. This is something beyond, totally beyond nature, beyond natural. And such a person, actually, they must have great zchuyot, because that's not a natural thing, necessarily. Now, what is the lesson of this Mishnah? So, what do you say? It's beautiful, Mishnah, but what's the lesson? We have different ages, different... What's the lesson? Tachlis. I think the lesson of the Mishnah would be... What do you want to say, Yitzchak?
They tell you how the life from the day you born.
Okay, so but a little more. Say a little more. What do you say, Eliezer?
I think to take advantage of where you are. No?
Beautiful. Beautiful. I think the pshat is like this. Very simple idea, but it's very significant idea. Very often we're involved in something and we get frustrated. I wish I was at the next, I wish it wasn't so hard. I wish that I don't know. I wish I was already married. I wish I already had kids. I wish I had this job that I wanted. I wish I had, Mishnah is telling us, there's a time and place for everything. Every stage in our development, every stage in our growth, it has its challenges and it has its opportunities. We should utilize that stage and try to do our best in that stage. What can we overcome in that stage, and what can we accomplish during that stage? So if Ben Shloshim is lekoach, let me figure out what exactly is koach and how can I use that in Avodat Hashem to the best way. If Arba'im is Bina, so let me figure out how do I utilize my Bina if I'm Ben Arba'im, etc. Go through each one. I think this is a common thing that people struggle with it. I know personally. If only I had a little bit more money, and then if only I had a little bit more time, if only use whatever you're given at that particular moment, at that particular stage in your life, for the greatest capacity to do Avodat Hashem. That's what the Mishnah is telling us. And it depends. Every stage in life, every one of us sitting at the table is at a different thing in their lives, doing different things. But we each have our nisyonot, we each have our opportunities, we each have our kochot. But each of us has to think, what in my stage of development do I have to do now to bring glory to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the greatest possible way? Stop Hashem. Stop here.